Welcome to the seventh edition of Indigene Digital Summit. My name is Sameer Lal, and I head Enterprise Medical Solutions business at Indigene, and I oversee all our work across medical affairs, regulatory, safety, and market access. The overall theme of the Indigene Digital Summit is chaos to clarity and better decisions. After 6 successful editions, the seventh one today is here, bringing together global leaders for meaningful real-time exchange. Get ready for well-structured discussions that bridge geographies, perspectives, and ideas. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce our Chief Technology Officer, Tarun Mathur. He will deliver a keynote address around innovation labs and state-of-the-art demonstration on agentic content. Effective content strategies need to factor the rapid evolution of how content is being discovered and consumed. We are seeing content be increasingly consumed directly by AI-based agents as the proxy to humans and traffic patterns shift to the zero-click search results paradigm. We will discuss and demonstrate some of the state-of-the-art technologies that are fueling this evolution and how omni-channel engagement technologies are going to move forward with the focus on generative AI. Over to you, Tarun.
We're going to talk about some significant ways in which content is discovered and consumed that we as content developers and information providers need to pay attention to. Hi, my name is Tarun Mathur. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Indigene, and I've been working with our life sciences customers and partners for over 20 years on content development technology and strategies. The world has certainly shifted significantly in terms of how we discover, look up information, and how the information is being accessed. And we've also seen a major shift in the tools that people are using in order to access the content. AI tool search queries grew 6 times over the last year, and I think that's actually a conservative number. And when I say AI tool search queries, what we're talking about are tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, other technologies such as Perplexity. These are becoming more and more significant in how our information is consumed and discovered by our end users. Relative to Google, certainly they're a small number today, but we see massive growth in each of these. And if you look at what the state of the art of technologies are, the kinds of devices we now have in our hands, and what's happening on our desktops, this trend line will continue to grow. We've also seen that search has become conversational. And what does that mean? So I'm sure everyone here who is actively using Google, in the old days, we used to do Google search queries with keywords. Maybe you're used to your old Google Kung Fu, where you know all the little tips and tricks, how to use the plus symbol and when to use quotes and the little hacks doing a search query. And we're used to putting in keywords. Today, we increasingly see that people are actually entering the entire question within the Google search bar. So, and the data backs this up. So from earlier this year, we saw 35% of traditional search queries have transitioned into conversational formats. Again, I think that number is fairly conservative, and it was from February of this year. And projections show that the search queries are going to become conversational. The vast majority of them will become conversational by 2026. So a recent report said 50% of all online queries. Again, my guess would be that's a conservative number. And the point behind this is that the way that folks are actually going and discovering content and looking for information is becoming conversational, full text, and they're using these new tools behind the scenes. So how do we, as content producers and folks that are responsible for syndicating and publishing accurate evidence-based materials, how do we leverage this trendline change, and what do we need to do to our strategy and our technology stack in order to take advantage of this? 60% of global Google queries result in zero-click. So when we say zero-click, and this has become a fairly hot industry term, zero-click means you go to Google, you ask your question, and you get the AI-generated overview called AIO. So that get that little overview response, and your answer is there. You don't need to click any links on the page. You get your answer right from that interface. So this is a significant number. And looking at the AI overview, that means we need to pay really close attention to how are these AI overviews generated, when do they appear, what kind of information goes into there. This is where we need to really put a lens on it and take a look at what do we as responsible information providers need to pay attention to. This shift in this zero-click shift has resulted in a near 35% reduction in click-through rates whenever that AIO appears. So again, so many of us have measured the performance and ROI of our websites and web content by looking at click-through rates. That metric is becoming less and less significant. And interestingly, we also see that the vast majority of times that this AI overview appears is when the content is informational in nature, which again, very relevant to our industry. We are dealing with facts and evidence-based information. They're very informational. So it's very likely that our content, especially from the enterprises, would appear in the AIO. Globally speaking, more than half, so 63% of all healthcare queries show in the AI overview. And so these include questions about people are asking, the system to diagnose a condition or maybe upload a photograph of their rash, which is why this is not 90%. But again, I think this number is conservative. The way that the AI models are changing and the way that they're shifting, this number will ratchet up. The point behind it being that we in the life sciences space who are putting out our information, our content, and are wanting the correct information to be out there, need to pay attention to AI overviews, since that's where people are getting their answers. So if we're able to take our content and optimize it for generative engines, the data shows that we can boost the visibility, in particularly within those AI overviews, by 40%. And if you do it right, even be a bigger number than that. So we need to really focus on optimizing our content for these AI overviews. And AI overviews are generated by generative AI engines. And so this optimizing for generative engines is what we really have to focus on. It means that we need to influence our presence in those AI overviews. And we need to influence the way that AI assistants and tools, who are the consumers of our content, interact with our material. So these are two very important points, that as we are now thinking about syndicating, publishing our information out there, the metrics that we're going to be looking at are the presence within the AI overview, and making sure that these assistants, the Perplexities of the world, ChatGPT, the Copilot, as those tools are consuming our content, that we're able to influence those tools so that they trust our content. They will use our content in generating the AI overviews. So if we were to ignore the technology side of things and use the current technology stack that's out there, how do things work? Well, we have AI agents. Let's say it's a Perplexity or even the Google agent that's creating the AI overview. We assign it some tasks. So I, as a physician, will go in and put in my full text question into this AI agent. The AI agent will go to some website. It'll go and get content from that website. It'll bring that content into its own short-term memory. We call that the context. And because I've given it a task, a question, the AI agent may have to go through multiple steps. We call it chain of thought. So it'll do reasoning. It'll start asking questions of that content and basically converse with its short-term memory in order to finally generate an overview or an answer for me. The challenge here is that now we, as the content producers, we can't really have control over that conversation or how the information is pushed back. We have unpredictable answers when we use this model. Also, very importantly, these agents that are going and creating things like AI overview, they are looking for content they can trust. And there are certain heuristics and certain measures that they look for in content, online content, in order to say that this is more trustworthy than something else. This particular model doesn't help with that. Right? This particular model actually lowers the trust factor, because all of the load in terms of synthesizing and interpreting information is done within the AI agent. There's not much control from the content provider. So we have a lower trust factor and unpredictable answers. The modern stack, the way that we're moving to today, is a little different. So again, we have our AI agent who's tasked with answering my question. And what it does now is it converses directly with my content as a content producer. So this is where we're introducing some new technology. Recently, Microsoft had open sourced a new reference architecture called NL-Web. It stands for Natural Language Web. We also have some new protocols that are out there, model context protocols, among the most popular. A2A stands for agent to agent. This is another standard protocol that's out there. But the combination of these technologies, among others, allow us to provide a standards-based interface so that when an AI system reaches out to my content and wants to pull down information and converse with the system, there is a AI agent compatible and friendly interface for it to do that. So I, as the content producer, I create AI optimized content, which is then leveraged on my own website or other publishing source. And now those AI agents, whether it's Google, Perplexity, Copilot, whatever it is, are conversing directly with my content through an agent optimized interface. This gives me more control. I have control over the reasoning. I can actually put in citations and sources. I can enforce guardrails. So it gives me a lot of mechanisms in order to make sure that the correct information is pushed out there and helps me establish trust with the AI agents. So this is a very important factor. When you have content that is well cited with trusted sources, you have statistics, you have references in there, then the AI agents who are discovering content online will increase their trust within your material, and then you're more likely to appear within the AI overview and appear correctly within those overviews. So what does it look like in practice? So this is a simple example of an interaction between an agent and published content. So we have an agent that was given a task, has done some reasoning, and then finally got an answer back from the website. And if I break this down a little bit, the left side is what my website does with the new modern stack. It received a question from an AI agent. It analyzes the content it has available. It breaks it down. It looks for the correct source material. And the right-hand side is what the agent responds with. And so in this case, I, as the content producer, made the decision to make sure that the content that's sent back are exact citations from the reference sources. We actually give a link to the source itself and synthesize the answer, using that kind of control. This will help establish greater trust. So when this information comes back to the AI agent, it'll see it's well cited, it's referenced, and it will increase the trust factor. You're much more likely to appear within the AI overview, which is what we really want to achieve in the end. So all of this combined feeds into a field called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. So many of us are familiar with SEO, search engine optimization. This is a layer that sits above that. So GEO is not SEO. In the world where agents are going and discovering and consuming our content, tactics like keyword stuffing don't work, which what we typically use in SEO. What does matter here is making sure your content has strong credibility behind it. These agents that are discovering our content and generating AI reviews, they are really working hard to establish what is the right source of truth. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the overall trend lines, not just within life sciences, but there's a big battle going on how to eliminate noise from the system, how to get rid of fake information, how to reduce adversarial attacks where people actually poison information sources to get bad content. So this ability for the agents to actually establish credibility with source material, that's really important. And so we as content developers and producers, and when we're building agent optimized content, being able to establish that credibility, particularly through citations and statistics, makes a big difference. Some of the most popular sources, like for example, if you have content that you can link back to the NIH, for example, then Google will see it as a much more credible source because it has established credibility with the NIH. You're able to cross-reference to material within the NIH site. That helps to boost your credibility. The other thing that is a big part of GEO, which is something that we don't often see on websites, is proper fluency. Writing content with full text, full sentences, proper grammar, making it clear, easy to read, that makes a big difference. And today, a lot of websites we design may not be following this pattern of having full text and nice fluent grammar and phrases in there. We tend to use keywords and buzzwords. It's more visually appealing, and that's fine for human consumption. But when we're talking about agents consuming the content, the story is a little bit different. The data shows that having clear, easy to read content significantly boosts visibility. So there is a playbook for how we can start tackling these problems. So the first step and the most impactful way is to start building a question and answer data set of your content. So today, look at your content, look at your material, start understanding the intents of your audience. So if our audiences are patients, caregivers, HCPs, maybe regulators, but look at that information there and think about those audiences and develop a question and answer data set of your content that you can publish on the back end as agent optimized content. This Q&A data set makes a significant difference in how agents interact and converse with your material. We can also link our content to some standards-based metadata. So schema.org is one that's been highly recommended. It's recommended by NLWeb as well. But if you're able to go and put in some markup using something like schema.org, that helps the agents considerably who are consuming your content. It removes ambiguity. It helps them organize their responses, and you'll get a much better and accurate responses back from AI systems. So bringing in this kind of structured metadata actually helps significantly. And then lastly, publish our content using the modern stack. So take advantage of NLWeb and things like MCP endpoints so that when an agent connects to my source of information, it's actually able to converse directly with that through a proper agentic type of workflow. So what does this look like in practice? So here's an example of a web page from Indegene's website, and it's a classic template. It's visually laid out in a very straightforward way. So looking at it, can easily see those three boxes at the top. Existing operations are unscalable, inflexible, siloed. So there's very clear keywords that work well for me looking at the content. When an agent looks at the content, though, we'd like to see it look differently. So when an agent comes to this web page, I'd like them to see a canonical question and answer content in there. So that top box there, and we'll zoom in on that. That little top box there, we removed those little boxes with just those keywords and instead brought in some more detailed question and answer with full sentences, phrases, and in a structured format. When you do it this way, it makes a big difference in how the agents converse with this. And there's a reason behind this. So if you've done any sort of prompt engineering or built your own little mini agents, many times, one of the tactics we tend to follow is that in my prompt, at the bottom, we'll put examples and you'll put sample questions and answers, right? So if you're building a little mini agent, if you actually add a couple of questions, example questions and answers at the bottom of your prompt, you'll find that your agent or your prompt performs significantly better than without it. It has to do with the way that agents are trained. And as a matter of fact, when we build small language models or train new language models or fine tune them, you typically build a data set that has three columns. Column number one are questions. Column number two are the answers to those questions. And column number three is the rational or explanation as to how that answer came to be. So LLMs love having information structured in Q&A format. So I, as someone who's trying to do generative engine optimization, should make as much question and answer content available as possible. Now, we're not required to change our website to look like this. This could be the view that agents see when they come to the website. But if a human comes in through Chrome browser or whatever you're using, then you'll see this version. That can certainly be done with the modern stack. So what does good look like? So if we are able to go in and do the efforts of taking our content, creating canonical Q&A sets, linking it to things like schema.org, and then taking advantage of NLWeb, MCP, A2A, those modern technology stack, what am I looking for? So the pressure for us is to win inside AIOs. So as I mentioned earlier on, click-through rates and some of the traditional metrics we use for seeing the impact of our SEO exercise, those don't matter. What matters now is getting inside the AIO. So we need to track some metrics. So it is possible to track your AIO presence and the citations you have within your content. We can look at the AI referral volume, so we can see how often are we seeing AI agents actually come and cross-reference material on our website, and we can see which actually engines are which specific engines are actually coming in and looking to see the mix across all the different engines. And we can also apply heuristics and other algorithms to look at agent readable coverage. So one of the tasks we have as content producers is to make sure that all the information that I'm trying to make available is agent readable. So can you actually go look across your content spectrum and make sure that you have canonical Q&A sets, for example, across the board for all of your content, or have you just zoomed into one particular area? So these three metrics are ones that we don't commonly measure and we don't often see in our CRM systems, and they're not really feeding into our omni-channel strategy, for example. But we now need to pay close attention to these. If 60% of queries are going through AIO, then these metrics matter more than most of the ones that we are used to measuring. And from a commercial marketing side of things, we do have to think about our CRM. This data can directly influence how we personalize content, how we think about next best action or next best options, and our overall omni-channel engagement strategy. These metrics can have a significant impact, and they're all measurable. So I, as a content producer, now need to take a close look at the algorithms and the approaches and look at the AIO presence. Am I appearing where I want to with the right intents? Am I not appearing when I should be? And use that information to guide us on how we approach our marketing and omnichannel engagement. The last point I want to lead about this is that we're not on our own in getting this task done. So it is a lot of work to take, especially today. We tend to have large volumes of content, and to actually now bring them into a GEO strategy seems like a daunting task, and it can be significant. But there are tools and there are ways to bring a lot of automation to this exercise. And it's probably no surprise that these are AI agents can actually make a big difference here as well. So generating this optimized data set, the trick here is to actually look at it from a domain lens perspective. If you are able to create an agent that really understands your audience intents, so as I mentioned, HCPs, patients, caregivers, regulators, whoever your audience is, you really need to understand your audience intents. What are the kinds of questions this audience will be asking? You should understand your product, understand issues, especially for our industry, safety and compliance, regulatory, brand guidelines. Also within our enterprise, we have a certain tone, style, voice. All of these attributes will contribute towards how we structure our canonical Q&A data set and how we publish our content in the end. When we build our agents using the NL Web Stack, they should embody these attributes. And when I'm taking in my source material, so maybe you have a bunch of PDF documents, a bunch of static websites, having an agent that actually understands when patients engage with this content, these are the kinds of questions they're going to ask. This is the tone and the style of responses that they're going to expect back. These are the details of the right products to look at. This is all the disclaimers I need to put in there. I want to make sure the safety messages are included in every single response. Our brand has certain guidelines for how we respond. All of these things should be and can be trained into agents who then can finally go through your material and start building that canonical GEO optimized content. So here's a screenshot, an example. On the left-hand side, we have an agent. There's a task agent, which is going and reading my existing website. And then this task agent will talk to a SME agent, a subject matter expert agent, who understands those right-hand bullet points, understands my audience classification, understands the product information and safety messaging, and then generates appropriate questions that are targeted for the audience. And this is important because it turns out that if I build a Q&A data set that is just a bunch of noise in there, or a bunch of arbitrary questions or duplicate questions or irrelevant questions, that actually diminishes the impact of the generative engine optimization. Having an appropriate Q&A data set that really reflects the audiences and the intents of the audiences, that's what matters most, because those are the kinds of questions people will be asking of our AI assistants. And so that kind of canonical set on the back end will improve performance of the system. So as you start thinking about your generative engine optimization, there are opportunities, and start thinking about what agents do you have access to? Can you actually train agents to look at the content with these audience intent understanding and use that to start building your Q&A canonical data sets rather than trying to build those by hand, which can be a very daunting exercise. So in summary, the zero-click trend is significant. This is a really big factor, and it's a dominant way in which content is discovered and consumed. So we need to pay close attention to this. That what does it mean for I as a content producer and publisher? Think about the KPIs that we can now use to measure the performance. If we are doing a lot of work on dealing with content for the zero-click trend, how do I measure the impact of all the efforts? Well, there are new KPIs for that, such as AIO presence. Let's pay attention to those metrics. Let's put those into our system, merge them into our CRM, bring them into our analytics dashboard so you can actually see the impact of this and how the real world is consuming and using our content. Leverage generative engine optimization. So use the techniques I talked about, canonical Q&A dataset, linking it to schema.org, adding in citations and references, especially to well-established credible resources, boost your visibility for those generative engines. And then bring in automation. Use state-of-the-art domain expert agents and models to assist in your generative engine optimization. So these 4 points are absolutely critical for us as developers of content. We can't ignore this shift because it's the dominant way in which content is consumed. It's not humans that are reading your content anymore. These are agents that are going to be reading your content, synthesizing the content, and giving it back to our end user. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we get the correct, accurate, trustworthy sources out there. So these techniques will certainly help in that direction.
Thank you, Tarun. That was fantastic. I'm sure the audience took away a huge amount of items or insights that they can then apply into their daily work life. And as for the audience, I hope you continue for the remainder of the session at the Indegene Digital Summit and derive tremendous amount of value. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Tarun, once again.
And that's it. Thank you very much for listening, and please feel free to reach out with any other questions.